Hey everyone, I just wanted to make a quick tutorial on how to replace your boot on your B.O.S.S body from Oveready. I really like the blue color with the black anodized aluminum B.O.S.S bodies. This of course is the 35mm body. I'm currently waiting on my my 70mm body with my head, so I don't have the head right now. But I do have these boots in, and I figured I'd make a quick video on how to replace these boots and actually how to remove and reinstall the mcclicky switch. I know that there's been a few questions on how to do that, so hopefully this will answer those questions. Now, first thing you're going to want is a plastic spudger tool. These can be bought in packs online. I got this with a toolkit, but you're going to want to use one of these versus a metal spudger tool because you're not going to want to mess up your finish. If I could stop hitting my camera here. You're not going to want to mess up your finish. So here's a metal spudger tool, and this will work if you're very careful, but I just like to play it safe, and I don't want to mess up my finish on my new flashlight, so I'm going to use this plastic spudger tool. So what you're going to want to do is, how this is set up is you have your boot here, and then you have this O-ring that's sit down inside of this this groove. What you're going to want to do is get under this O-ring and pry it out. So this is why it's important to have a plastic spudger tool versus a metal spudger tool, because when you go into here, there is a milled out groove that this O-ring sits in. So you're going to want to get under it and sort of pry up and inward toward the boot, and it should pop out like that. So you want to pry up, like up, and then inward, like try to get up under it and pull it this way out of the groove. So once you get that out of there, just pull the rest out, set it aside, and then the boot will actually just kind of come out of there. There's a recessed milled groove that this fits into. It sits down on top of the mcclicky switch, and there that is. But this boot, the little ears on it here, the little flap, just sits down inside of that groove down in there. So with the mcclicky switch, what you can do to remove it, I recommend getting a pair of fairly wide and stiff needle nose, or sorry, not needle nose pliers, but tweezers. And they would be needle nose tweezers. But what you could also use if you want, which I recommend on some other things, and I can show you that in a minute, but you can get a pair of snap ring pliers and use those, and I suggest to get some that are beefy and not just stamped steel like these tweezers are. You're going to want beefy ones, because the things that you're going to have to use this for, you're going to have to rotate, and these aren't really meant to rotate, they're just meant to open like this. So when you go to start rotating them, like these tweezers, when you go to start rotating them, you can bend them, and then they actually won't work very well. So with this, the mcclicky switch is actually not in there very tight, so these work better, and I'm not really sure, I haven't tried it, but those holes may be too small for my snap ring pliers. So anyway, what you're going to want to do is align these tweezers with the holes, go ahead and stick them in the holes, and then you're just going to turn it counterclockwise to remove it, and it simply unscrews. And once it's unscrewed, you can just simply remove it and replace it if need be. I don't really see a lot of reason why you'll ever need to remove this. Maybe there might be some gunk down in that face, so that shined surface down there has to be free of anodizing, because the whole negative side of the circuit runs through the body of this of the body, and so this ring here mates up with that surface and completes the circuit. So that's how that works. So that has to be clean. So if it's not clean, or if it gets dirty, or you drop it in mud, or who knows, that would be one reason to remove this. Or let's say spring breaks, or whatever the reason. This is how to remove it. So how to put it back in, same way, just opposite. You're going to want to spin it backwards a couple threads until it seats, until the threads seat, and you'll feel it, just like screwing on a lid for anything. Once it seats, go ahead and start twisting it. This should not be forced at all. This should be very free and smooth. If it's forced, you could be cross-threading, and you don't want to do that, because then you'll just have to replace your switch. So let's see. Once you get it all the way seated, give it a nice little snug there. Shouldn't take much. And then we'll move on to installing the new boot. Now, I've already done this once, so let me check. Okay, so the new boot, or the old boot, is hollow inside of this boot, so it can squish all the way. The new boot, however, is going to come with a little nub, and that little nub is going to need to be cut out of there in order for it to work, because you need to have room for the mcclicky switch. So you can see that the nub is not going to work. So you're going to have to cut that out. Best way to do that, I found, turn this switch inside out so the nub faces outward. And actually looks like this one has already started to peel there, but you want to get a utility knife or a pair of scissors, or just whatever you're going to use to cut this thing off. And just go ahead and very carefully cut this nub off. You don't want to go too far down, because since this thing is inverted the way it is, you could cut all the way through the boot. So should look like that. Does not have to be perfect. My other one looks like that. You can obviously see that it is not perfect. But once you get this cut, fold it back right side out. One thing you'll note is this specific boot, which, by the way, this is a 14 millimeter diameter, 14 millimeter in diameter, and I can show that here. I have a pair of digital calipers here, and the battery's dead, so I don't have a set of dial calipers, but you can get the idea. So this will be 14 millimeters this way, so you can see the readout, 14 millimeters, and then 8 millimeters this way. So there's 8. One thing you'll note is the lip is wider on the stock boot than on the new boot. And it could just be the one that I have, but the ones that I've seen online are very similar. So this looks to be somewhere around 19 millimeters in diameter right there. Close to that, 19, we'll say 19. And then this boot looks like it could probably pass for 17.5, maybe 18 millimeters. So you are losing a couple of millimeters here with this lip. I don't think that's going to be an issue. It could possibly be an issue with watertight, this end being watertight. But as long as your cell can handle it, the guys from Oveready have said that the B.O.S.S heads, all their heads are watertight. So worst case, you fry your battery. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is going to be fairly watertight, but again, this is not tested. This is not their boot. So if you want to do this, this is on you. So with the new boot, you just slide it down in there, and since the wings on this, since the lip is not as wide, it just kind of pops down in there, and then you put your O-ring back in. The easiest way I found to do this is just kind of use your thumb and go around, kind of pop it back down in there. And then what you'll want to do is, once you get this all started, you'll want to take your spudger and go back around it and make sure that everything is seated correctly. So what I'm going to do is just sort of make sure it's down in there, push on it a little bit, Looks like everything's down there. I'm sorry that all this little dust is collecting on everything here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And again, I don't have my head, so I'm not going to be able to test this out. But it clicks, so everything should be good. But yeah, that's how to remove and install the mcclicky switch and a new Tailcap boot on the B.O.S.S. I hope this helps anybody with any issues that they may have been having. I know I saw one guy was having an issue. He thought that his O-ring was not seated correctly. So this should help him out. If you guys have any other questions, just let me know, and I'll try to get back to you. Thanks.